All right, so moving on to our judges today, we have a panel of 4 incredible judges joining us today. They are all professionals in mergers and acquisitions, and I would like to have each one of you introduce yourself and a little bit about your background and what you do. So to start off, I want to introduce Ali Flores, or Alexandra Flores, who comes from CDS.
Thanks, Kelsey. I'm Allie. I went to USC. I graduated in 2016, so I've been working professionally for about 5 years. I started off my career in audit at Ernst & Young, did that for about 3 years down in the LA practice, and then moved up to the San Francisco practice for a bit before transferring over to a new firm, which is a boutique consulting firm that focuses specifically on financial diligence for mergers and acquisitions.
Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Of course, I'm excited.
All right, and next up we have Jordan Wing joining us from Visa. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi guys, this is Jordan here. Thanks again for having me. I am a graduate of UC Davis, so it's always good to be back involved with some way with the college. So thanks again for having me here. I started off my career as a technology investment banker, mostly advising software internet companies on mergers, acquisitions, investments, and other strategic initiatives. I joined Visa about 5 years ago doing a similar capacity. I'm a director of corporate development and M&A. Probably spend half my time working on M&A strategy, looking at business cases, and working with product teams to understand their needs and how we can achieve that through M&A. And the other half is actually doing the deals themselves through diligence, negotiation, valuation, and so forth. So thanks again for having me. Look forward to this wonderful discussion.
Of course. I didn't know that you were also a Davis alum, so welcome.
I am, yes, fellow Aggie.
All right, and most of you have already met Dev Sir from Intel, but he's here today to be a judge.
Thank you, Kelsey. Also, thank you for inviting me here. Very excited. I think this is going to be quite interesting for me. So I've been at Intel 24 years, but I've done M&A for about 12 of those, primarily in the director of M&A integration. I primarily drive diligence and integration of acquisitions, and then also carve-outs and divestitures from Intel. Thanks again.
Okay, and last but not least, we have Indisha Adana, also from Intel, joining us today.
Hey everyone, nice to meet you. My name is Indisha. I also go by Indy. I've been with Intel about 8 years now. Initially joined in the FP&A group, doing operations finance, and then moved over to Intel Capital about 5 years ago. Initially mostly focused on M&A for the first 3 years. Had the pleasure of working with Dev on some M&A deals. But the last couple of years, I've transitioned to a more of a venture investment role. So I look at early stage investments in media and entertainment, enterprise software companies. That's my primary focus. Prior to Intel, my experience was mostly entrepreneurship. I spent about 10 years running small technology businesses, and then went off to grad school and joined Intel after my MBA program. Nice to meet you.
Alrighty, thank you so much again, everyone, for being here. It looks like we have a vast mix of professional experience, so we're really excited to hear, what you guys think of our presentations today. So first up, we're gonna have team 4. Okay, Julie, your team can go ahead and get started whenever you're ready.
All right, sounds good. Good morning, everyone. We are Team Tesla, and we are the Mergers and Acquisitions team. And today we'll be kind of going over the acquisition that we'll be suggesting our company to acquire in order to help improve our overall financial and overall company growth. So this is just a quick introduction to our team. My name is Julie.
I'm Bhavni. I'm Isabella.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Logan.
So first we'll be kind of reviewing our agenda for the morning. So first we'll be diving into our problem statement and overall strategy for our acquisition. Next we'll be making our acquisition suggestion, as well as going into some of the financial data that helps back up that recommendation. Next, we'll be covering some of the synergies and mutual benefits for both of the companies that we'll be talking about this morning. And lastly, we'll just be wrapping up with our conclusion.
Yeah, so recently Tesla has been looking to diverge away from only being known as an automobile company and is looking to go into other sectors of the energy market. Recently, demand for backup generators has risen, and this is due to the fact that power outages now are more frequent and more people are at home due to the current circumstances, so power is now more essential. Tesla has already entered this industry through their Powerwall product, and this is basically an energy storage solution using alternative energy in the home. However, they still have yet to be among major competitors. They recently reached the benchmark of 100,000 home installations, but that doesn't compare among top players in the industry, so they need to expand to get to that point.
So the company that we would be suggesting Tesla to acquire was Generac in order to help solve a lot of the problems that we mentioned in the previous slide. But who exactly is Generac?
Generac is the top manufacturer of home backup generators and energy technology solutions. They manufacture the widest range of power products in the marketplace, which include portable residential, commercial, and industrial generators. They also make accessories for backup power applications up to 2 milliwatts. What makes Generac different from its competitors is their key focus on power generation and providing quality and affordable power solutions.
So from what we found from our standalone forecast of Generac is that from the past couple of years, their increase in sales has been really high. So we also projected those sales to increase over the next 5 years. We also noticed in the past that their increase in sales have produced an equal increase in net income, and this is due to their handling of their expenses. For their return on equity, it started out really high in the past, but it's been on a decreasing rate. So there is a projected plateau. So if they don't expand or don't get acquired, their return on equity will flatten out and stay on that trend. For their ability to pay off debts, based on their current ratio, they are able to pay off their debts. They do have some debt, but that shouldn't be a problem if Tesla acquires them. So they wouldn't be acquiring debt. They would be acquiring a company that's able to expand.
The financial health, Generac has a market cap of 3.5 billion and has generated over 233 million in operating cash flow in the last 12 months. Their operating cash to total debt ratio is 24%, which is enough to cover its debts. The company is able to utilize its borrowings efficiently in order to generate cash flow, and they are reinvesting its profits at a high rate of return despite their high debt levels. Due to COVID-19, the demand for residential products is really benefiting due to more people working, learning, and in general being at home. With an aging and underinvested electrical grid and power outage severity on the rise, backup power for residential applications is more important than ever right now. This is evident as domestic sales has increased about 9% after the start of the pandemic.
So when we set out to create our standalone forecast for Tesla, one of the things that really jumped out to us was an overall focus on the reinvestment of assets and revenue back into the company each year, as they really were just pushing for growth year after year. That being said, 2020 has been slightly off that trend, as we've seen net income instead of loss for the first time since before 2017. And overall this year, Tesla has put out pretty solid financial numbers. The only thing that they could really improve on is their return on assets, which isn't exactly the best, but definitely could use some work. As far as energy generation and storage revenues are concerned, which is where the Tesla Powerwall product would fall under, those are currently just a small fraction of Tesla's totals. And in comparison to their automotive sales, those numbers are really, really small. So as far as what we projected for that energy generation and storage revenue, we didn't really see any reason to project any substantial growth without the acquisition of Generac, as in the past few years, it has been pretty stagnant. But for Tesla as an overall company, we did account for some pretty steady overall growth, as year in and year out, they do push the limits.
So synergy-wise, there are areas where both Tesla and Generac can benefit. Generac specifically addresses that a lack of new financing could limit their ability to expand. And this is partially due to factors such as stiffer competition, both regionally and internationally. But on the other hand, Tesla needs more capital to streamline their supply chain. And in the past, they've described issues with independent suppliers delivering parts on schedule, and a 12% increase in PPE for 2017 through 2018 suggests that there's definitely more space for more capital. Culturally, Generac and Tesla seem to be a great fit. Both describe themselves as aggressive and innovation oriented. And in terms of resources, Generac has overseas sales offices in Australia, the UK, and France. In 2019, 21% of their net sales were international. And based on this data, we feel that these existing offices could give Tesla access to two things: a sizable global customer base and more revenue to offset their manufacturing costs. On the flip side, we would see some competition from global brands such as Caterpillar and Honda. However, in the bigger scheme of things, we feel that the reward of more customers and revenue could outweigh this competitive risk, mostly due to industry growth, which we'll cover a bit more on our next slide.
So the acquisition of Generac really opens a lot of doors for Tesla and really just expands the potential for the entire home energy market and just increases exposure to potential consumers that wouldn't previously have been interested in that market to begin with. So when we look at what we projected for overall net income in the next 5 years, the number that we came up with after our acquisition of Generac was about a 1.18% increase over what we had originally projected in our standalone, which might not seem like a lot, but when we isolate just the energy generation and storage revenues, those numbers are actually projected to quadruple in the next 5 years, which is huge. And along those same lines, we definitely see an increase in related services, whether those be repair and maintenance or just the installation of those various units across the country and across the globe. As far as related research costs go, we definitely hope to see a decrease in those, as the access to Generac's optimization resources could definitely help with that. So as far as what we projected for the next 5 years and beyond, we definitely hope that energy generation and storage could trend towards being a larger fraction of Tesla's totals and be right up there with their automotive revenues.
So overall, we found that a partial acquisition would have many benefits. Both firms would maintain their respective growth strategies, with Generac getting additional financing for expanding and Tesla adding capital with using Generac's resources. Bigger picture, home energy and generators are likely to grow into a highly influential market. The size of this growth suggests this will actually go past recent events and current power outages and so on. So the market demand will likely be here to stay. Because of this, we think that the length and magnitude of growth will offset the risks from areas like acquisition costs and competition. And moreover, synergies between their expansion plans and existing resources could increase efficiency while decreasing costs. Tying it all together, demand, resources, and industry potential make Generac a great stepping stone into a new market for Tesla.
So thank you all for taking the time to listen to our presentation this morning. Once again, we are Tesla, and we hope you have a good rest of the day. Do you guys have any questions?
Yes, Julie and team. One question is, does Generac have any solar powered products, or is it just what kind of products does Generac have? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I can answer that question. So right now they have their backup generator, which is a little different from Tesla's Powerwall product. It isn't exactly integrated with solar from what I can believe, but they do have access to, I guess, off the grid optimization resources. So right now it just would be, I guess, a generator instead of like optimizing home generated solar. But one of the key things that we think Tesla could, or Generac could really bring to Tesla is just the ability to resell those generated energy back to the company. And so essentially homeowners could make a profit off of excess energy generated.
Okay.
Hey guys, this is Jordan. Great presentation, by the way. Great job from Tesla. A quick question from me. I think, Generac is typically seen, I guess, as a less well-known company, whereas, Tesla holds sort of a brand recognition there. I think by Tesla owning something like Generac, Generac's assets can benefit from the better brand recognition and folks having more trust in that. how much of an impact do you think that applies to sort of the brand image of Generac once it's owned by Tesla? And what do you think the impact of that would be on the overall sales and overall business?
I think I could answer this one. So it's kind of evident that Tesla is obviously a pretty well-known company at this point, especially here in California. Just the widespread image of the brand. When you're walking down the street, you usually see it's not too uncommon to see a Tesla. So especially with the brand that Elon Musk has created, we likely see consumers seeing Tesla as more of an innovative and definitely a trustworthy company when it comes to energy usage. So we definitely see at least a substantial increase in sales for Generac should they be acquired by Tesla.
Quick question, guys. Great presentation, by the way. On your conclusion slide, you mentioned a partial acquisition. Can you say a little bit more about that? Are you proposing an investment in Generac, or are you proposing Tesla acquire the whole company?
So as opposed to a full, I guess what we call a swallow acquisition, this would basically entail Tesla being able to sell some of Generac's products, specifically the components for the Powerwall, which in this right now would be Generac's generators.
I think that something that we could implement in the near future would just be something as simple as maybe it's the Generac product, but then in fine print, like at the top or at the bottom, it's like backed by Tesla, almost like a candy bar made by Nestle, but it goes by a different name. And then in the future, we could see, because since those are two, I guess, competitive products, if you want to look at it from that way, they could just completely swallow Generac. So right now, we're mainly just focusing on acquiring the assets and I guess the resources that Generac has to offer. But in the future, if we see that that it makes sense to just go ahead and have one mainstay product that we want everyone to have in their home, we could definitely push for that and just have it be the Powerwall.
Okay, great, makes sense.
Thank you. You guys have called out two very good points in the presentation, which is, for an acquisition, which is culture and location, which I think people sometimes don't think are. What is your what is the thinking behind the synergies with location? Is the thinking that Tesla does not have a presence with Powerwalls in these countries, and hence you think that there'll be excess synergies here? What was the thinking behind the locations?
So as we kind of went over in the problem slide, obviously Tesla is kind of a new player to the market when it comes to generators. So we feel that since Generac has existing resources, in this case, sales offices, and those international locations, that would give Tesla a great jumping off point in terms of growing their brand and market share.
Got it. Thank you. Can you also comment, Mark, or one of the is on the thinking? What kind of diligence did you guys do on? You say that both companies share aggressive, innovation-oriented cultures. How did you come up with that assessment?
Officially, the wording is from their SEC filings on the 10K reports, but we've seen from investment projects, especially on Tesla's side, including investments in solar energy resources for the manufacturing. They definitely live up to the innovation-oriented, the term they brought up in describing their cultures.
I was just going to add that in addition to Tesla acquiring a company recently in Solar Edge, Generac actually, I think it was almost a month ago, acquired a company called Imbala, which did bring those, I guess, access to the ability to resell generated energy back to the company, which was a really huge acquisition for Generac, which really improved like their third quarter overall growth.
All right, that's okay if there are no more questions. Great job, Team 4. You can go ahead and stop sharing your screen. It's definitely challenging to go first, so thanks for bringing it. All righty, Team 7, whenever you're ready, okay?
Hello, everyone. We're the Netflix M&A team, and today we have an acquisition proposal to help solve what we think are Netflix's main challenges that they face today. I'm Ji Ping.
I'm Chetan.
I'm Santiago.
I'm Jenny.
I'm Ivy.
Amidst the COVID pandemic, streaming service subscriptions has seen a surge due to stay-at-home order. Netflix in particular has seen a surge of over 28 million subscribers. Their competitors has also seen a similar surge in numbers. With the increased competition over the years, Netflix now owns just 19% of the market share in 2019 compared to the 91% in 2007. In this competitive market, many consumers have left for its competitors, such as Disney Plus, who offer bundles and live TV that Netflix does not offer.
We also noticed the limitation of licensed content on the current Netflix platform. According to a Nielsen report, the availability of content is among the top 3 attributes when a consumer subscribes to an online streaming service. The pain point we have identified here is how Netflix can focus on their Netflix original production while expanding their content library. Please take a look at this data from 2019. On the left-hand side, we see that Prime Video has surpassed Netflix in the total available movie category. Besides, Netflix has a similar number in TV show offering, but they're still behind. Next slide, please. Here we have the total view hours of Netflix subscriber back in 2018. Data shows that 80% of view hours comes from licensed content. That being said, consumer cares more about having a wide range of content rather than just the original content offered by Netflix.
To help solve Netflix's challenges, we propose to acquire Fubo TV, a live streaming service that was founded in 2015 and just went public on October 2020, with our goal of creating a bundle with them.
Today, we will go over why Netflix should acquire Fubo TV, its financial health, the forecasting, and identified synergy. Now I'll go over why Netflix should acquire Fubo TV. As you can see, Netflix competitors all have live offerings, sports, and almost everyone has a bundle deal where currently Netflix has none of these offerings. Competitors are making great use by creating bundles with other companies, which causes Netflix to lose market share and their customers. Our hopes with acquiring Fubo TV is to allow customers to have a bundle deal for them to be able to watch live TV on top of what Netflix is offering at a discounted price. Fubo TV is a streaming television service that is offered in the US, Canada, and Spain that focuses primarily on channels that distribute live sports, news, and hundreds of channels. For example, in Davis, they offer over 200 channels. Currently, Fubo TV costs $65 per month, which is the same as YouTube TV. Fubo TV also partners with FaceBank, who has experience in film production. With the pandemic still going on, this can lead to possible virtual concerts similar to the Travis Scott Fortnite concert or the Michael Jackson virtual concert by using FaceBank's digital human technology.
For this section, Yicheng and I will be breaking down the financial health of Fubo TV.
Based on end-year numbers collected from 2019, we can see Fubo TV have very poor financial health. Actually, it has 5 straight years of negative operating profits, heavy current debt which should be paid off within a year, and long-term debt which should be paid off after a year. It's worth noticing that Fubo just spent $100 million to merge with FaceBank at 2019. It really needs the help of Netflix on finance. So Santiago will explain financial ratios through 3 essential aspects.
Yeah, so here's a snapshot of the key valuations of Fubo TV as of June 2020. To make it very clear and concise for you guys, we broke it down into 3 categories. We have debt, profitability, and cash flow. So we can see for debt that all these numbers are below 1, which actually shows that Fubo TV is in an unhealthy state. And for profitability and cash flow, all these numbers are negative when they should be positive. And this is kind of showing that Fubo TV has been spending too much money versus making money. Their expenses have been way more than their revenue. And as Yicheng has said that Fubo TV has been having 5 straight years of negative operating profit. And this is mainly due to Fubo TV spending a lot of money on their infrastructure, expanding their platform, and for also buying out FaceBank. And this is why they could really use an acquisition from us as Netflix, and we totally believe in their product. And we can actually see how this is very similar to what YouTube and Google did with their acquisition. Back in 2006, YouTube was actually not making any money. They're spending a lot of money on lawsuits and expanding their platform. And that's when Google bought out YouTube, and now they're a multi-million-dollar company. So this is something that we can see that we can do with Fubo TV.
All right, so now I'm going to take a look at the forecast that we did. So, especially amidst the pandemic, streaming platforms are becoming increasingly popular. And over the next 5 years, data from Statista.com shows that revenue growth for streaming platforms will be an annual 10.7% over the next 5 years. So this was a benchmark number that we wanted to use for our standalone forecast for Fubo. And as you can see here on our graph, the blue line is going to represent Fubo TV's revenue growth, assuming we don't acquire them. And then the red line is assuming we do acquire them and create a bundle with them. So the first year of the bundle, we're expecting 30% revenue growth. And this is based off an estimator of when Hulu offered their similar bundle for the first time. Saw 25% of people opted into it. And also the increasing percentages of families cutting cords and ditching cable for streaming services. So that's the reasoning for the high first year of revenue. And then you can see even more substantially, this is our projection of debt, assuming that Netflix acquires Fubo TV. We think that Netflix's capital can help them really alleviate debt quicker and get them working towards positive operating profit even faster, which will really help them free up cash flow and tackle those looming operating expenses that are keeping them so non-profitable right now.
Now we will talk about some mutual benefits shared between Fubo TV and Netflix. The first synergy would be the gain in subscription base. As of 2019, Netflix has 61 million base in the US and 106 million subscribers worldwide. You can see this is a huge potential for Fubo to expand their service internationally and gain more brand awareness in the United States by leveraging the Fubo Netflix bundle plan. The research also showed that US cord cutting household is predicted to grow from 17.3% in 2019 to a 27.1% in 2023. Meaning that more people are moving from traditional cable to online streaming platform, and Fubo can provide Netflix incentive for people who want to switch. With the new bundle plan, we're expecting an accumulated impact of 25 to 30% growth subscription rates from people who already have Netflix, Fubo, or our competitors and potential cord cutting customers.
Our second synergy is mutual financial gain. With the increase in subscribers, both companies are expected to gain revenue. Fubo TV currently has over 300,000 active subscribers, and we assume that at least 30% of those subscribers will transfer over to Netflix through this bundle. This means that Netflix will significantly increase the revenue. In addition, Fubo TV will now have the backing of Netflix, a large company who will help them significantly decrease their large debt. From our pro forma, we saw that Fubo's debt would decrease by $32 million with the help of Netflix. Their debt will decrease at a much slower rate if Fubo stays independent. Our last synergy is leveraging FaceBank's technology and their virtual events. Fubo TV will gain a large platform to exclusively show their virtual events and concerts. For example, they can showcase their Michael Jackson or Tupac concert exclusively on Netflix, leveraging Netflix's large consumer base that will increase Fubo's brand awareness. In return, Netflix will be able to differentiate themselves from their competitors and create a niche of having virtual events on their platform and gain back their market share.
So as we conclude this presentation, we wanted to give a rough estimate of what our initial offering price to Fubo TV would be. So they IPO'd at 620 million last month. And we feel that based off their return on investment and negative operating profits, we feel we might throw a low ball offer at them, 75% of IPO value, 465 million at first. Obviously room for negotiation, but we just feel based off their poor financial history so far that this would be a fair offer initially. And going forward from there, we really believe in their product. We know that Netflix is losing out on customers because Hulu, Amazon Prime Video, and Disney Plus, they're offering something live. And Netflix is not there yet. They're still relying on only originals that we know is only 20% of what their customers watch. So they need to really break into that, and having a live TV platform that offers over 200 plus channels is where we felt we wanted to go. So thank you guys so much for listening to our presentation, and we look forward to answering any questions.
One quick question for me. Do you guys plan to keep Fubo TV as kind of its separate name? So it would be like Netflix plus Fubo TV, or do you plan to kind of merge them into one? And why do you, whichever you choose, why do you see that as a benefit?
Absolutely. So separate entity for sure. what we really wanted to do was kind of like the Hulu plus Disney Plus. You can get both for a discounted price. So Fubo TV is like $65 right now. So we think, okay, if you get the bundle, then maybe it's around $75. So you're getting almost Netflix at only an additional $5. So this will be helpful because then like people who already have Netflix, maybe they're Netflix and cable users, which is what I am. If this actually went into practice, and I would be like, oh, why don't I just ditch cable and pay for this bundle? So yeah, definitely separate entities still, but yeah, bundling, not just a merge of the platform, I guess.
How does the monthly rate compare to some of the others? I'm not a Hulu. I don't have Hulu, but how does that compare to some of the competitors at $65 a month?
Yeah, so $65 a month is the same as YouTube TV, but Fubo TV offers way more channels than YouTube TV, and it actually offers even more than Hulu Plus. So Fubo TV is really, it's comparable to just like a substitute for live TV, whereas Hulu Plus and YouTube TV really offer just like the main channels. So I think that's why, like, even though Hulu plus Disney plus ESPN Plus is only $62, which is a great deal. But yeah, I guess the reason Fubo TV is a little more expensive is just they offer more channels.
And you guys said they have 300,000 customers right now?
That's correct.
Hey guys, this is Jordan here. Again, another great presentation. I especially like the part about when you talk about the valuation and the appropriate price to pay for a target company. Could you please talk a little bit more about the risks you see with this acquisition? What are potential backlash from the customers or from the market? Or as the market evolves, what are some of the risks that you can identify with this acquisition?
Okay, so for me personally, I think the biggest financial risk right now would be just their history of negative operating profit. It could just be a concern that maybe their product isn't as good as we see it. So that's obviously a risk. But we feel that the product is strong. They're just new. They're newly public too, and they have taken on a lot of debt by acquiring FaceBank, the VR company, and their revenue is increasing rapidly. They just can't keep up with their operating expenses. So I think the just financial risk that maybe we don't see any just return on investment would be the biggest one. But we feel that the product is strong, and with Netflix's brand recognition, I think it would just accelerate because I mean, I didn't know about Fubo TV. It actually was not my idea. It was Ji Ping's idea that she found out. So I think if Netflix offered a bundle with Fubo TV and existing Netflix customers saw that, oh, what is Fubo TV, and looked into it and saw that it was a great substitute for cable at a cheaper cost, I think that's kind of what Fubo needs. I mean, they're competing against Hulu Plus, they're competing against YouTube TV, like recognized brands. And even though they offer, in my opinion, a superior product, they aren't getting that name out yet.
Very good point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Great presentation. I agree with the deal rationale. I liked how you did the competitive differentiation between Netflix and some of its bigger competitors, and why Fubo would make sense as an acquisition. But you mentioned they went public just recently, right? In October. How has the company done since then? I'm curious why you think investors would be willing to take a significant discount from the IPO valuation.
That's a good question. Does anybody want to jump in on that one?
Yes, I don't have the exact numbers, but from their 10K that we researched about, we just saw that with their subscribers have only been increasing, and their revenue has also only been increasing. So although like their expenses are very high, in fact, like their revenue has only been increasing ever since they went public with Fubo TV.
And yeah, just to add on to that, to answer your question about why, because they just went public. So like you said, they probably would want to be independent and try to make it work independently for a longer period of time before going under the wing of a tech giant. But my reasoning would be that, especially with the acquisition of FaceBank, the virtual concerts and stuff, I think they'd really want Netflix to be a platform where they can kind of utilize that even more. Because right now it's like they're not broadcasting it to a wide enough audience. But if Netflix kind of became known as like the streaming platform that you can watch the Michael Jackson VR concert, like that could be huge. And also just for them to, I guess, alleviate debt quicker, they might also want to be taken under the wing of a bigger company. And I think it comes back to brand recognition at the end of the day. I think if they feel that their revenues are growing, but it's not quite enough, maybe just having that Netflix bundle is the thing they need.
Okay, great answers. Thank you both.
Thank you.
One quick one, guys. Do you think that the main synergy for Netflix is gain in market share, or is it the technology?
We believe. Oh, do you want to?
No, I was gonna open up to anybody.
Okay. We believe personally that it's the market share. So a big part of what Netflix is lacking is their live TV options and just like having a lot of content to watch from. And so Fubo TV will offer plenty. Oh, sorry.
No, I think you're fine.
Yeah, Jiping, you can finish answering.
Yeah, you can finish up. Yeah.
So then Netflix TV will have all this great content that hopefully will attract the competitors' market share back to Netflix. Like they will now have an incentive to come back to Netflix. And it also helps that the target audience of Fubo TV is like the same age gap. Like there's a lot of variety in the age range, which also helps coincides with Netflix's target audience.
Got it. Thank you.
Great answer, Jiping.
All right, great job, Team 7. You could go ahead and stop sharing your presentation.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, judges. Great questions.
Yes, great questions. All righty, and then up next we have Team 5, which is Facebook.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. We are representing Facebook and in the acquisition of Blue Mobile.
So let's meet the team. I'm Brennan.
Hi, I'm Haya.
Hi, I'm Chloe.
Hi, I'm Sahana.
I'm Sophia.
I'm Meghna.
I'm Hiroto. So to introduce our problem statement, although Facebook was a top gaming platform for a decade ago during the Farm Bill era, the company really hasn't been a dominant force in recent years. Mobile games, especially in the free-to-play market, have seen huge spikes in revenue, where most of that revenue was gained via in-app purchases for the pay-to-play market and in-game advertisements. What we believe is that Facebook would want to acquire a company that specializes in mobile gaming and also has a considerable amount of market share.
So what's important to note is that Facebook once had a huge hand in the mobile and casual games market. In 2010, the company entered a 5-year deal with developer Zynga, who made games such as Farmville and Break with Friends. In 2011 and 2012, Zynga's games were extremely popular with mutual benefits in this codependent relationship. In 2011, the Zynga deal attributed to more than 19% of Facebook's revenue, and Farmville at its peak had more than 30 million concurrent users. In 2013, however, Zynga and Facebook's deal was terminated, creating an opening for other developers in the casual games market.
So here's some insight into Facebook and why they would want to make an acquisition in the gaming industry. The company has been making some very aggressive expansions in the gaming sector, and Facebook for Business actually talked about how the mobile gaming industry has been rising rapidly and how there are no signs of it slowing down. One of these is Facebook Gaming, a mobile gaming app, and a lot of features on this app were developed in response to the pandemic. Another major one would be Facebook Reality Labs, an umbrella term under which Facebook has recently brought all of its VR work. One of the most famous and well-known of these is Oculus, which was acquired by Facebook in 2014. Lastly, PlayGiga is a cloud gaming startup which Facebook has recently acquired, and through this acquisition, it is now entering the cloud gaming market as well. So essentially with all of this, what Facebook is trying to do is build out its gaming business, which it claims now has more than 700 million monthly users, as it tries to diversify its revenue sources beyond just online advertising. Fiji Simo, the head of the Facebook app, said, investing in gaming in general has become a priority for us because we see gaming as a form of entertainment that really connects people.
The mobile games market is a large revenue goldmine with continuous growth potential. According to Newzoo, mobile gaming makes up for 60% of revenues for the global games market. By the end of 2020, it is projected to account for nearly 77.2 billion in revenues. This marks a 13.3% increase in revenues from 2019, and the year-on-year revenue growth is estimated to be 9.3%.
So what's important to note going into this acquisition is Facebook's current financial status. In 2019, Facebook made over $70 billion in revenue, earning a 2019 net income of $18.5 billion. So our solution to becoming a mainstay in the casual and mobile games market is to acquire Glue Mobile Incorporated in a $900 million acquisition.
Okay, now let's talk about what Glue Mobile is. It is the leading developer and publisher of mobile games for both smartphones and tablets. They offer their products to a variety of mobile platforms. They've established their reputation as one of the big players in the mobile gaming sector through popular games such as Kim Kardashian Hollywood, Cooking Dash, Design Home, and MLB Tap Sports Baseball.
In terms of Glue Mobile's revenue growth, we have noticed an upward annual revenue growth trend in the last 10 years. Their annual revenue has increased by 600% from 2010 to 2019, as demonstrated on this graph.
So next, we'll dive into the synergies and mutual benefits that Facebook and Glue Mobile both share.
Okay, so there are several financial synergies that we can expect to see, but we're only going to focus on a couple of them today. So Facebook will be able to profit off other platforms like the Play Store and the App Store when users make in-app purchases by acquiring Glue. And also, since Glue already has contracts with large IPs, Facebook will gain access to those as well. And then as Megna will go into on the next slide, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been a substantial market growth in social media and mobile gaming usage. So there's a lot of market potential for Facebook and Glue to tap into through an acquisition.
Now, with most countries going under lockdowns, there was a spike in the consumption of digital entertainment, in which social media and mobile gaming were some of the biggest players. We looked at a report from Motor Intelligence to better understand how COVID-19 has impacted the mobile gaming industry. And through this report, we found that the mobile game downloads had spiked. Also, the daily in-app purchases, which account for a substantial amount of revenue in the mobile gaming industry, have also increased by a lot. Finally, we also saw overall trends in the increase in daily active users due to the impact of the lockdowns.
For our cost-saving synergies, we believe that Glue will save money on research and development, as well as marketing resources. As Sahana mentioned, Facebook already has Oculus Digital Gaming and Entertainment, in addition to Facebook Reality Labs to boost Glue's R&D capabilities. In terms of marketing, Facebook currently owns the 4 most downloaded apps of the last decade, including its own Facebook app, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Messenger. Through the operation of these apps, Facebook can provide Glue with a huge marketing outreach boost. This will cause our R&D and marketing expenses to initially increase as Glue expands, but later on create huge cost-saving benefits through shared resources.
Now, one big way that Glue would benefit from Facebook would be the bypass developer fees. Facebook takes 30% of revenue from third-party developers. To put this into perspective, let's look at how this affected Zynga's share prices after they ended the contract with Facebook. In 2012, when Zynga was in contract with Facebook, we saw their share price at $14.5. However, after ending the contract in 2016, we saw Zynga a record low of $1.78. Looking at this, we can conclude that the
ending the contract with Facebook was detrimental to Zynga's share prices. Now, Sophia and Hiroto will be discussing our financial forecasting data.
Okay, so this table represents an abbreviated version of our standalone forecasting for Glue if it was not acquired by Facebook. So we looked at 2020 and 2024 revenue, gross margin, and net income. And what we can see is from revenue that it increased by about, or will increase by about 58.5%. Gross margin will increase by about 76.3%, and net income will actually increase 1.6 times over. So this data basically shows us that Glue is a strong company with continuous growth, even without Facebook's resources, and it makes it a very good investment for Facebook if it wants to expand its reach into the mobile gaming sector.
All right, so what's our pro forma? This is essentially our predicted data of if Facebook were to actually acquire Glue Mobile. One thing I do want to know, however, is the percentages that you see on screen are the percentage change of values from standalone data and pro forma data, so you can think of it as a before and after percentage. With this data, there's two main takeaways I'd like to discuss. First being that we can see net income falls in 2020 relative to the standalone, then it increases in the long run due to the cost-saving synergies it shares with Facebook, whereas Chloe mentioned, they can share their R&D resources and can also make use of Facebook's marketing resources to decrease their costs. The second thing I'd like to note is that although revenue does increase in relation to the standalone in 2024, the income increases by a much higher magnitude. This is due to the fact that the expenses Glue would face would decrease immensely due to the cost-saving synergies mentioned from before. So rather than revenue being the main proprietor of income growth, it's actually the decreased expenses that's perpetuating this.
So factoring our forecasting projections, based on our predicted net income and equity, we calculate an expected 31% return on equity after a 5-year period. So to conclude, we have some key figures. Facebook is going to acquire Glue Mobile for $900 million. Based on their 2018 and 2019 financial statements and the previously mentioned synergies the companies both share, we project a 561% growth in net income and a 31% return on equity. This acquisition will once again make Facebook a key player in the ever-growing casual and mobile games market. Thank you, and we'll now take any questions.
I'll jump in here quickly. Great presentation. How did you guys come up with the purchase price of $900 million that you've referenced throughout the presentation?
Oh, so what we did there was we took their current share price at the time of making this presentation, and then multiplied it by the number of outstanding shares to sort of get an evaluated price. It was around 876 million, and then we just rounded it up to 900.
Thank you.
Okay,
So
makes
quick question
sense.
here.
Sorry, go ahead, Jordan. I'll ask after you.
Oh, okay, no problem. Thank you. Quick question here. Another great presentation here. I was looking at Glue Mobile's website. It looks like they sell their products to consumers, to the customers using a freemium model, so you can pay for sort of a higher level of access. I think that's a little bit different than Facebook's philosophy, where they're making their services mostly free to all the consumers, sort of as a way to democratize connectivity between sort of people around the world, right? So by changing the business model and offering a freemium product to the consumers, do you think there's any risk of damaging sort of the brand mission or philosophy of the company? And are there any risks to that you can think of?
I can jump into the. I can answer
go ahead.
this. So I don't believe so, because our plan would be to keep Glue Mobile pretty separate from Facebook, even though it would be acquired by it. Referencing, Farmville and Zynga in the previous deal, that was pretty separate as well. And I believe Farmville was also a freemium game, or there were ads, but you had to, watch the ad to get certain coins, or you could pay money to get certain coins. So, and that didn't really affect Facebook's reputation as like their business model. So we believe that it won't have any negative impacts on Facebook's kind of how Facebook's model is seen.
Very good point. Yep.
Okay, great presentation, everyone. I like how you looked at some of the macro trends affecting this space, specifically the impact of COVID on gaming, the recent growth in gaming. Do you think that trend will persist post-COVID? Are we going to see a change in consumer behavior that would last, or is this a temporary thing?
I can also answer that if no one wants to. So actually, I've been reading a couple articles about the change that COVID has made in general to work-life balance. And what we seem to be seeing is that even if companies reopen and people go back to work, that it'll be much more socially acceptable to work from home and, you know, if you're feeling slightly ill or whatever. And so even though, of course, you know, because we are in a quarantine lockdown, mobile gaming usage has shot up, and it will go down slightly when things, you know, return back to normal whenever that happens. We don't really expect it to fall significantly, just because there is kind of this shift in social perspective about the dangers of illnesses in general and the acceptance of work from home.
Just to add on to that, even before COVID, we saw trends of revenue spike up for casual games and mobile games. So I think we can still expect that kind of gradual increase in the market even after COVID.
Great answers, thank you. So I like how you really focused on the financial and the cost synergies. I noticed you mentioned shared R&D between Oculus and Facebook Reality Labs. Do we know if Glue is doing any virtual reality or other augmented reality type of games, or are they?
So far, most of Glue's noted, like most popular games over the years have not incorporated visual reality components, but we believe that Facebook's Reality Labs can really help boost their how widespread they are in all of their different niches. So they can incorporate it into new mobile games and possibly make a good breakthrough with it.
Okay, great.
And
Thank
I'd like
you.
to add to that. So Glue actually did have a game in the past called the Deer Hunter series, which did focus a lot on VR. So they have used it in the past. So I think it's safe to assume it might be something they would want to look into in the future as well.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
One question: if you're planning to keep this company separate, which I think is a great idea, by the way, how do you plan to achieve the R&D synergies, etc.? You know, a lot of times, you know, when you do R&D synergies, the two groups, the two companies are operationally integrated. Did you guys think through that? Any thoughts on why you thought you need to keep it separate versus integrating into Facebook?
We believe that keeping the brands separate will be smarter for the companies and their separate other kinds of operations. But in terms of R&D resources and shared operations, Facebook already has really great establishments for R&D companies that can really provide more insight for Glue. And Glue's own R&D capabilities can also help be shared with Facebook's other mobile gaming to help them boost their own status in the mobile gaming world.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, if there are no more questions from the judges, I think that's time. Thank you so much, Team 5.
All right, welcome to our proposal as Netflix to acquire Spotify, where two worlds will collide. So our problem statement for Netflix is that it was once a near monopoly in the streaming industry. Back when streaming was taking off in 2007, Netflix had over 90% of the global market share in video subscriptions. But as you heard earlier, it has dropped significantly to only 19% in 2019. We need to change our service in order to meet the challenges of a market with very few barriers to entry and very rich competitors like Amazon, Hulu, and Disney+. And we need to change our service in order to retain our customer base.
To start off, I'd like to draw your attention to the two highlighted boxes on our root cause analysis. We're trying to figure out why our market share is declining. In terms of technology, our company has advanced streaming video services, great content, but there's currently no social infrastructure that's third party, or that's first party. Currently, there's a third-party platform called Netflix Party, which is a social media-like service that has come up in the rise of COVID-19, but we really want to make sure that we have first-party social infrastructure. In terms of culture, Netflix is a part of mainstream culture in society, and people discuss our company constantly. We'd really like to capitalize on that cultural ubiquitousness. So why is our market share declining? We can look to our competitors like Hulu, Disney Plus, and Amazon Prime Video. They provide exclusive content that we cannot provide. There's currently no reason for a subscriber to stay with us if the desired content is elsewhere. How do we retain our market share? We need to give consumers a reason to stay with Netflix, and to do this, we'll create new and exclusive content, as well as build out social features to encourage cross-platform interaction and create a sense of community.
So we have considered other companies to acquire that could also bring exclusive content or give us a social infrastructure such as Slack, Zoom, and Amazon. However, they didn't really have the technology or audience that Netflix would be looking for, so we considered Spotify. And Spotify is in similar industries as with Netflix. It already has a social infrastructure built in place, and Spotify could also help add new content to Netflix. And so we propose to acquire Spotify. In terms of exclusive content, Spotify is actually already looking into the video streaming industry and turning some of their turning some of their podcasts into motion pictures. So Netflix, being a big production company, could help produce that. On top of that, Netflix could also start streaming music videos, and thanks to Spotify, they could have exclusive access and early access to music. And knowing these advantages, Netflix and Spotify together could compete against bigger companies like Amazon and even YouTube. And so in the past, Netflix and Spotify actually already had a partnership together on a documentary called The Last Dance that was about Jordan's career. And so Netflix streamed the documentary while Spotify had a music and podcast playlist that viewers could go to after watching the documentary. So seeing that there was already a synergy happening back then, we thought that having these two merged together could bring a really great potential for them to have new and exclusive content to attract even more audience.
Yeah, so these are some of the social infrastructures that are already in place at Spotify, and this is what separates Spotify from other music streaming platforms. And likewise, we want to do this with Netflix, where we want to separate Netflix from other TV and movie streaming platforms. And we believe we can do this by implementing that social structure that Spotify already has. So as you see here with the screenshot on the right side, you could see live friend activity. You could see what your friends are listening to. And the way that we will integrate this with Netflix is by being able to see what your friends are watching. So for example, here we could see Tony watching The Walking Dead, while we can also see Jacob listening to Party in the USA. So that's the way that we will integrate both of those things. Another feature that we like about Spotify is their collaborative playlists, where you can add songs with your friends to make these big playlists that we also did with EBSA, as you can see here. And the way that we would integrate this with Netflix is we would have collaborative show playlists where you can work with your friends to make playlists. And this screenshot here that we made as a prototype, on the right side, you can see the social sidebar that I just showed. And also on the left side, you could have your list of playlists and collaborative playlists.
Yeah, so let's talk forecasting for Spotify. In the times of COVID, Spotify is providing digital entertainment, and that's only becoming more popular and common. So we do see their revenue growing, as they still are the biggest music streaming platform in their industry. However, we also forecast their total expenses rising significantly in the near future, driven by large R&D and sales and advertising costs to keep up with their competitors. Spotify currently has 36% of the market share, but its competitors are Apple with 20% and Apple Music, and Amazon with over 10% of the market. And those numbers are growing, along with those competitors being very, very wealthy and having the resources to spend to try to catch up. So unfortunately, Spotify will have to spend a lot to keep up with them. And as a result, its operating margin we forecast will fall in the next few years. Spotify is currently hovering around even, but to keep up with these bigger companies, we see them having to invest a lot more in innovation and advertising to keep their name at the top of the industry.
Yeah, so we propose that merging with Spotify will have a lot of already great synergies. So we know that Spotify and Netflix already have very similar technical and financial overlaps, so hopefully that'll cut down on costs. We also think that both companies have a lot of things they can learn from each other. For example, as mentioned, Netflix can integrate Spotify's social features, while Spotify can increase revenue by having more subscribers and learning from Netflix's subscriber base, subscriber features. And then we also think that they have a lot of great synergies together in that, as seen earlier with The Last Dance, Netflix can provide the shows while Spotify gives discussion podcasts. So merging with Spotify will just ultimately provide a lot of new content and revenue for both companies. So as mentioned before, there's just the current streaming industry is just, there's too many out there that many users are reluctant to pay for them. So they'll just look at the Netflix packages and the Spotify packages and they'll just think, oh, I don't really need that. And Spotify is actually having that. They are having that problem in that they have 75 million users, but only 26% of them are actually paying premium users. And Netflix is just losing out to all the other competition. But our solution is that by acquiring Spotify, we can offer a discounted bundle that will encourage users to have both a Netflix and a Spotify. So users will get to save 25% off. They'll get both Spotify and Netflix. Spotify gets more of a premium user base. And hopefully having this social UI will keep people with Netflix as they'll want to stay with where all their friends currently are. And hopefully the new content will bring in further audience members.
So for our pro forma forecast, with the merger, Spotify's expenses will level out as Netflix will shoulder many R&D, sales, and advertising costs, while revenue will take up due to increased exposure with their connection to Netflix. As a result, Spotify's operating margin can become positive in the near future and gross margins will increase, meaning Spotify will become more efficient.
All right, everyone, we hope you enjoyed our proposal to acquire Spotify. We think there are strong mutual benefits for both companies in this merger. Netflix gets this incredible social UI that will create sort of this ecosystem within it that's very social and gives people other reasons besides purely exclusive content to stay with the platform. And along with that, Spotify gets an increased user base and a higher percentage of premium subscribers in likelihood. And it can also help that company make money, whereas Netflix right now is very profitable and can afford to shoulder the initial costs of Spotify not being profitable and turn them both into a very successful enterprise. Thank you.
Jacob and team, I'll go first. Why would firstly, I think you guys, this is just another great presentation, so thank you for that. Secondly, question, it looks like it's primarily a user interface and the capability of Netflix. What is the main premise of the acquisition? Are you acquiring the customers? Are you acquiring the content? Why couldn't Netflix just upgrade their own UI to include all the upsides of Spotify?
Yeah, so I think there's a few sort of aspects of the deal that make it work. So yeah, one is that you could develop your own UI, but I think it is understated how expensive and difficult even the simplest kind of UI changes are. And you know, I've attended kind of like data science talks from Netflix people, and all of the streaming and all of the social features that these these companies have are actually more intensive than they appear on the surface. So kind of merging with an already existing structure and along with acquiring sort of that new customer base, since this bundle is pretty cheap and likely to be very popular, we think that has more benefits than just purely trying to roll out our own. Along with that, we do actually get Spotify's some of probably Spotify's podcast and music base. So although that is not like the primary logic behind the deal, we do feel like we will embrace possibly their Spotify and those synergies we talked about, like Michael Jordan's documentary where there was accompanying music and playlists. And we think all of those factor in to to make it a deal worth more than just our own UI. It's not just a UI update. We think there's a lot of parts that make it a very strong acquisition.
Got it. Thank you.
Hey team, great job on this presentation. I know you highlighted content collaboration potential between the two companies, but have you looked into cost synergies around content licensing and content production for exclusive content? Do you think that could potentially be a big driver of value as well?
Yeah, I could hop in again. If someone wants to add on, though, go for it. Yeah, I do think content licensing is kind of a little of an unexplored area. We are sort of considering it in the sense that you would think that kind of a show that requires an investment like that documentary we displayed, we can get a better return on it by kind of creating this whole package of content instead of just one of the aspects and letting third parties take care of the rest. So it's not our most explored cost synergy, but it is a factor we've already considered, and we think there are efficiencies to be gained there.
Okay, thank you. Good answer.
Hey guys, this is Jordan. A quick question here. A great presentation, as others have stated. One of the things you mentioned is that if Netflix were to own Spotify, you can offer this sort of bundle the discount pricing. And I imagine if I look at sort of the current demographic of Spotify and Netflix users, it tend to be sort of middle to higher affluent, or younger demographics, say 16 to 65, what have you. And a lot of them are currently using both. So by combining the two companies and offering a discount, you're potentially cannibalizing some of that business. Was that forecasted into the revenue forecast that you have showed in the earlier slides? And what do you think about sort of the potential for cannibalization of existing customers who are currently using two separate products and paying a higher price separately?
Yeah, I think in that case, it's really important to hammer home Spotify's current issues with premium subscribers, that they're only getting about a quarter of their base. The most basic Netflix package, or not the most basic one, but the standard one is the middle one that most people get, which is around $14, and then Spotify's $10. So you're looking at a change from 24 combined, or 24 if they're separate, to $20 together. However, I that certainly is kind of taken into account, but I think when you see Spotify's, since one of the infrastructure gains is Spotify really having being interconnected with Netflix, right? You can open your Spotify app, see your Netflix friends. You can open your Netflix app and see your Spotify friends. So I think you're really talking about a pretty large gain in premium subscribers that will outweigh any reduced revenue that will inevitably happen from cannibalizing the people already subscribed. But I think there's a really huge demographic out there that doesn't pay for Spotify Premium but watches Netflix, and I think you're gonna definitely get those gains back and more with this combination.
Yeah, in addition to that, the bundle that we're offering is only for the premium subscription. So that is like the most expensive one for Netflix, versus like a lot of people just go for the basic or the standard. So we're like upping that. So yeah.
Great.
Would you keep the brand?
Absolutely. Spotify is its own brand, very much so. And it's really just this, I think there's a lot to gain really from having it stay separate, but there's just these connections in the UI and these connections between the platforms that make it much simpler than using a different streaming platform. You're not going to get that overlap in content, and you're not going to get those social features either, but the brand staying separate is still an integral part of that.
Team, good job on the financial analysis, including the pro forma, but have you looked into valuation? Have you done any analysis on what it would take to merge the two companies or acquire Spotify?
Yeah, so I'm just going to answer this really quickly because Henna tried to wrap it up, but yeah, I want to answer this. So yeah, it's definitely a complicated acquisition, right? Spotify is no small company. It's got like 75 billion market cap. So it would definitely not be an easy evaluation and acquisition. However, we do think it's possible. Netflix would have to kind of sell more shares and do some manipulations around its finances. However, big tech analysts like Kara Swisher have talked about this deal being possible. So, frankly, I'm going to put my faith in some of the industry experts that do see this as a financially feasible acquisition. However, we kind of did not go too deep in the weeds because, frankly, it's kind of too technical for this presentation. But it does very kind of involved people see that as possible, and they see the finances working out. But it's definitely a little more complicated than some of the other acquisitions financially.
Thank you.
Alrighty, that will wrap up Q&A for this group. Thank you so much, Team 6. Great job. Judges, great questions. Alrighty, and next up we have Team 3, which is Amazon. So you can go ahead and share. All right, awesome, we see that. Alrighty, you can go ahead and get started whenever you're ready. Good luck.
Hi, everyone. We are Team 7, and we are Amazon's M&A team. And these are our members.
So today our agenda will be covering the following: about Amazon, American Airlines forecast, financial health of American Airlines, synergies, overall strategies, acquisition forecasts, and our next steps.
So first, we wanted to give a little bit of context about Amazon. Amazon is an international technology company which originally started as an online book retailer, but has since then moved on to e-commerce, cloud computing, streaming, and artificial intelligence. Some of their top priorities are lower prices, better selection, as well as convenient service. And during the pandemic, while a lot of companies have been struggling, we see that Amazon has been continuing to grow.
And we will be focusing on the online retail segment of Amazon here. And when looking at our problem statement, we see that Amazon has lost market share due to their postponement of 2-day shipping for non-essential products due to COVID-19, which allowed competitors such as Target and Walmart to grow in 37% and 32% respectively in traffic during the month of March, while Amazon only grew at 9% during the same time period. The postponement of their 2-day delivery Amazon Prime service showed that they have a weakness in their supply chain, which we believe can be addressed with the acquisition of American Airlines. American Airlines currently has about 864 aircraft that we can utilize in order to keep some commercially. However, we could also turn some into Amazon Air cargo planes, which would increase the supply chain efficiency and would also increase the capabilities of Amazon's shipping network, and would also allow for Amazon to enter the commercial airline industry.
Now here comes to our American airline forecasting. According to our forecast, during the pandemic era, the airline industry was being suffered by losing their passengers, and the revenue growth of American airline would decrease for 73%, and the net earning growth will decrease for 54%. And the net operating income is basically negative. And the next slide, let's show about the financial health about American airline.
So when we see of American Airlines Q3 financial results, we see that they received an operating loss of about $2.8 billion, which currently in this year they've already lost $8 billion as opposed to their total operating revenue of $11 billion last year. So currently they're experiencing a lot of effects from COVID-19, and the industry is supposedly expected not to recover from that until about 2023. Even with vaccine in development. And we also see demand for aircraft departures has plummeted due to COVID-19. Again, this has caused American Airlines to be in a very poor financial health position, and the company is expected to lose about $14 billion during this whole operating year.
So I'll be talking about synergies and mutual benefits. Cost saving. So as for Amazon, due to the rise of online shopping, because during this pandemic, it needs more cargo airplanes. And currently it uses this airplane model called Boeing 767. And American Airlines initially planned to retire 767 to cut down costs. So this is a good opportunity to turn them into cargo planes. And as for American Airlines, merging with Amazon will reduce debt since it is suffering more debt than other airlines. And as of 2020, it is reported that it has the highest debt rate of all time with $30.076 billion.
increased employment. So more planes means that more shipping, which will require additional work than before. So, and in addition, American Airlines business cycle will flow again, and unemployment due to the pandemic will decrease. International market. So by acquiring American Airlines, Amazon can expand its international shipping market to compete with other companies that are currently dominating the international market like UPS, FedEx, and DHL. At the same time, American Airlines can improve its standing among top cargo airlines such as FedEx Express, Qatar Airway, UPS, and Emirates. And lastly, supply chain efficiency. So right now, Amazon has about 100 flights per day. So more demand for online shopping means that Amazon can increase its flight per day with American Airlines. And lastly, American Airline can restore its flight per day that has decreased up to 70% in June. Next slide.
And when we look at the overall strategy that we have, we see that UPS has about 274 aircraft in their shipping fleet, and FedEx has about 650, while Amazon Air only has 70 aircraft. The acquisition of American Airlines would allow Amazon to convert many of American Airlines' 864 planes into cargo aircraft, while also maintaining enough to stay in the commercial airline industry.
So beyond the benefits of attaining more cargo planes, we think that this acquisition would also help in some long-term benefits as well. So this could be Amazon and American Airlines expanding their loyalty programs. And so examples of this is if there are frequent Amazon customers, they can get discounts for cheaper American Airlines passenger flights. And then on the other hand, if there are for frequent flyers of American Airlines, they could get discounts for their Amazon retail purchases. And so this would give both companies a competitive advantage because of these really unique discounts that are specific to the partnership.
With the possible merger of American Airlines and Amazon, Amazon products can be introduced to American Airlines in their commercial flights. The services that can be accessed are Amazon Prime Video, Music, Audibles, Twitch, and Amazon Drive. These services would enable to bring a whole new set of users into Amazon subsidiaries. People who have never used Amazon before can use a trial account to experience Amazon services before joining Amazon subscription.
According to the pro forma forecasting, after American Airlines cooperated with Amazon and all the data shows within thousands, although the pandemic makes the first year profit decrease more than 50%, the net operating income will increase from 21,800 before the pandemic to 25,491 in 2025. And the operating revenue would also increase from 45,768 to 50,477 in 2025 due to the increase in the cargo. And the net earning also decreased in half in 2020, but it quickly recovered and almost approached to the level before the pandemic. And as we can show for our revenue chart, it shows that with the cooperation with Amazon, American Airlines would recover faster and even exceed their level before pandemic happened. And Amazon will also get benefit by expanding their network and make their logistic more convenient. And here come our next steps.
And for our next steps is we want to proceed with negotiation and continue our due diligence with the company. However, that is all for this presentation. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, we are hoping to answer them all.
Thanks, guys. That was a great presentation. Have you considered the feasibility of and cost of converting commercial planes into cargo planes?
Yes, so the conversion is rather expensive. However, cargo flight rates have actually increased, and it'd actually be more beneficial for Amazon in the long term to do these conversions, especially with the COVID impact. These planes sitting in commercial industries are just not flying. There's actually a much bigger loss than if those planes were converted, which could lead to a higher profit.
I also want to add, like, since they are using the same model, Boeing 767, I think it will be better, like more convenient to convert to the same model than a different models.
Thank you guys. Very interesting concept. I have to tell you, when you first started, I was kind of thinking, and then you guys painted a really good picture. I have a question. The problem statement is having cargo planes the only issue and only problem in their supply chain, or have you guys is that it? Because the supply chain tends to be a pretty, multiple aspects to a supply chain. How did you focus on planes?
We focused on planes mainly due to the fact that we also want to expand Amazon's reach internationally, which it doesn't have as much impact, and having a larger fleet would allow that, such as FedEx having about a much bigger fleet. We also feel that we just saw that with the impact of COVID, that the higher amount of aircraft in the fleet would allow for a larger shipping network, which could create a lot less problems. We do understand that you have to utilize shipping bans and all these things, but we believe that the creation of larger shipping points and having different networks in different states, just in the US, would allow for those impacts not to be so drastic and to not have to postpone Amazon Prime 2-day shipping, which is the staple of the company. And we also believe that with the incorporation of the planes, Amazon's all about accessibility and making the process easier. We really don't want any more effects to our customers resulting in the loss of that 2-day shipping service.
Got it. Does Amazon have enough cash to buy American Airlines?
So on hand, currently, Amazon has about $36 billion in cash alone. The acquisition would not be done solely through cash, it would be through financing. And currently, American Airlines has a total assets of about 60 billion and a market cap of about 5 billion. However, they're losing that revenue drastically, and they're going to have to either sell off their aircraft fleet or their other assets, meaning that we won't have to pay a premium for the company. The company is slowly falling apart, so they'd be very open to the price that we're willing to pay.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think out of all the major airlines, American Airlines would probably be the easiest target. And I do agree with you that you probably wouldn't need much more than a few billion to acquire them if you decided to go that route. But have you considered other alternatives to this acquisition? Does it make sense to maybe buy the planes that they're retiring versus buying the whole company and acquiring the associated headaches that come with that? If the problem is just increased air cargo capacity, does it make sense to just acquire the planes instead?
That the acquisition of the planes for increasing our shipping capabilities is only one part of our strategy. Amazon, we're also using it to enter the commercial airline industry. Doing that from scratch is super expensive and would cause a lot of pains for Amazon. However, acquiring that fleet that already exists, those shipping points, all those networks that American Airlines already has, would allow for Amazon to come into the commercial airline industry as well, and to do it better than American Airlines. Currently, Amazon just released a pharmacy industry, and the fear of the market is that Walgreens stock dropped about 20% because they fear that Amazon can do it better. And in Amazon's pitch, they were pitching that the process will be easy, that you'll be able to get your products simply just from ordering. And that's the same experience we want to do. Flying can be a pain, and at Amazon, we want to make that process easy. We want you to be able to get the tickets from your phone. We want you to be rewarded for being an Amazon Prime customer. We want you to be able to, once you're in the flight, to have a great time with Amazon Prime Video. These are all things that come together, which is why we didn't solely focus on just getting aircraft itself to improve our supply chain. We also want to use it as an opportunity to come into the commercial airline industry.
Sorry, I was on mute. I was just saying great answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
I especially did not when you guys kicked it off, did not think through the synergies of Amazon, on planes, and that I thought that was a good one.
We find that integration would be very easy for the customers. And also, if you're not Amazon Prime customer, however, you have a great entertainment value while you're on your flight. You might be on a 12-hour flight, you need some entertainment, and that might drive you to become a customer because you just started watching a show and then you get home and you want to finish it. So we believe that also can utilize American Airlines service to provide just regular Amazon Prime customers.
Would you keep the American Airlines brand, or would you rebrand as something along the lines of Amazon?
We believe that we would rebrand under Amazon solely based on the fact that people associate Amazon with accessibility, with an easy process. We really want to keep that brand pushing forward. And even though it might see that Amazon is everywhere, we believe that people love the Amazon brand. They utilize it all the time. And again, if you're rewarded for being an Amazon Prime customer for, let's say you already undergo many flights in your daily life or something, then having an airline that gives you a lot of benefits that you might not receive somewhere else, it will really help drive both Amazon Prime customers and service towards what was American Airlines.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
I
you
think
all
that's
for your questions.
Yeah, great job, Team 3. I think that's all the time we have for questions. So we've got our last presentation up next, but not least, it's going to be Team 2, which is Microsoft.
Good morning. So we are a part of Microsoft's mergers and acquisitions team proposing to acquire CrowdStrike. My name is Kevin.
I'm Diana.
I'm Sylvia.
I'm Alex.
Shura.
I'm Cindy.
So Microsoft's current problems include not having enough cloud and AI market share and threats against cybersecurity attacks. Microsoft currently only holds about 19% of cybersecurity, 17% of cloud, and only less than 2% of AI market share. Our proposed solution to get more market share would be an acquisition between Microsoft and CrowdStrike. Alongside, Microsoft will be able to solve their risks against cybersecurity threats by combining their products, which would reverse the outcome of the risks.
Here we'll talk briefly about CrowdStrike's business overview. So CrowdStrike is a cloud-based cybersecurity company providing services with endpoint protection and AI solutions. Their Falcon platform protects customers from devastating attacks, business disruptions, and other theft of financial information. CrowdStrike's current business goal is to continue stopping breaches, expand across the US and other countries, and bring innovative solutions for advanced security using cloud and AI.
So here are CrowdStrike's main competitors, Fortinet, Palo Alto Networks, and McAfee. So for Fortinet, the support system started off very poorly and is only slowly growing and updating. And for both Fortinet and Palo Alto Networks, both haven't started using AI and machine learning in their products, while CrowdStrike already has a strong product base in this sector and provides a more cost-driven solution.
As for McAfee, they focus only on known threats, use local machinery, and deliver basic functions that limit threat hunting. CrowdStrike, however, protects against both known and unknown threats, uses cloud architecture, and offers advanced endpoint detection response. CrowdStrike Falcon, which is CrowdStrike's platform to prevent cybersecurity breaches and malware attacks, offers comprehensive security protection in the form of a lightweight sensor that is cloud managed and cloud delivered. As a result, CrowdStrike is able to consolidate their security solutions and eliminate any on-premise infrastructures, unlike their competitors. They're able to protect against all advanced threats using crowdsourced data and cloud analytics. And as mentioned previously, their advanced endpoint detection response allows them to use automated alerts and 24/7 threat hunting to search for cybersecurity risks. Now we'll be looking at their synergies. Microsoft is currently aiming to build an intelligent cloud platform through applying AI. We can see that their main focus is to grow in the cloud, AI, and security sectors. Microsoft will be able to solve their cybersecurity risks with CrowdStrike Falcon. This system works to protect against cyber attacks in real time using signatureless AI, and thus improving the overall privacy of Microsoft's products. Microsoft will also be able to combine CrowdStrike's products with its own in order to provide security to customers of all sizes. By merging the two companies, there will be an expected 100% increase of subscriptions by 2025, which will also then result in an estimated 25% increase in gross margin. As you can see in the chart, The light blue shows the subscriptions and the gross margins without acquisition, while the dark blue shows the increases with acquisition.
Another synergy is that both companies' management teams would work very well together. There wouldn't be a culture clash between the two companies because CrowdStrike will maintain their brand and culture as well as their management operation under Microsoft. Both teams have similar goals such as developing a larger market share in cloud and AI and providing easier access for their customers to their products. Microsoft and CrowdStrike will also help each other ensure that individual company goals are also met.
With this acquisition, both companies will be able to achieve their goal of expanding in the cloud, security, and AI sectors. Microsoft will be able to solve their risks against cybersecurity attacks, and CrowdStrike will be able to access a larger audience while using Microsoft's resources in order to expand their services.
Our fourth synergy is a location synergy, which will lead to a reduction in cost on data center commitments for CrowdStrike. Microsoft already has major regional operation and data centers all across the world. CrowdStrike is looking to expand to a more international audience, and by using Microsoft centers, they will be able to cut cost of goods sold by up to 64%. Using Microsoft's well-developed R&D team and marketing team would reduce CrowdStrike's SG&A and R&D costs by 60% and 15% respectively.
Without cutting costs by 64%, CrowdStrike holds 1% of the US market, with our main competitors holding about 4% and large companies having roughly about 18%. CrowdStrike's 1% might seem daunting at first, but compared to their competitors, CrowdStrike is less than a decade old, proving their rapid growth. Additionally, we believe CrowdStrike to hold a greater share than our competitors in the future because they are one of the few companies using AI. According to our research, the US cybersecurity market for 2020 is roughly $37 billion. We came to this conclusion by adding up the top 25 US companies' revenue. However, on a global scale, the cybersecurity market is $167 billion, leaving an opportunity of $130 billion to be made. While CrowdStrike holds servers in Germany, they have yet to scale to a global market, leaving room for future growth and revenue. If Microsoft chooses to move forward, we recommend a cash acquisition combined with a stock-based option because Microsoft has the liquidity, meaning no debt would be created, and combined with a stock-based option, it saves us liquidity and lessens the burden of the acquisition by sharing this risk with CrowdStrike. The stock-based option would also incentivize CrowdStrike management to perform well because they have a direct stake in how Microsoft performs. We value the company at $800 million to $1.5 billion using a company comparable analysis, using other major companies such as a base such as Carbon Black and Pivotal, which were acquired for roughly $1.2 billion and $2.7 billion respectively. CrowdStrike may be a smaller company, but using AI technology with futuristic goals justify our evaluation at $800 million to $1.5 billion.
Next, we'll talk about the integration. So Falcon Defender is a futuristic product that we created combining the two platforms from each company. So Microsoft currently has its own endpoint security platform similar to CrowdStrike Falcon called the Microsoft Defender ATP. And we believe that potentially combining these two platforms will highly enhance endpoint security and real-time detection. So from our research, we found that Falcon is currently more advanced and sophisticated in terms of detecting malware/ransomware, and they also have a very strong threat analysis program. While Defender ATP is very user-friendly and has low impact on Windows computer performance, it unfortunately has low virus detection rates. By combining the two, Microsoft can enhance their security and be able to have a stronger platform for virus detection in the future. With the possible creation of Falcon Defender and joint technology, we expect 100% increase of subscriptions by 2025, with overall reduction in expenses, and see the drastic increase in revenue growth approximately 5 to 15%, which Kevin will talk more about next.
Thank you, Cindy. So on to the forecasting. CrowdStrike has had phenomenal revenue growth in previous years with over 100% in both 2018 and 2019. However, they are entering a new developing market with many competitors. When analyzing these competitors, namely FireEye and Carbon Black, we saw that in the early stages of the company, they had around 90 to 100% revenue growth rates as well. That quickly fell and stabilized at around 11 to 7% respectively. Therefore, we forecasted CrowdStrike to have a similar revenue growth trend to these competitors. However, with Microsoft's cash reserves and popular brand, we believe that this would lessen the decrease in revenue growth, instead stabilizing CrowdStrike at around 15% after 5 years.
As for R&D margins, you can see that CrowdStrike's R&D margin is relatively high. However, if they were acquired by Microsoft, they would spend less on research and development due to Microsoft's well-developed and experienced research team. From this graph, you can see that the SG&A of CrowdStrike is also relatively high, along with their other expenses such as R&D margins mentioned in the previous graph. CrowdStrike being acquired by Microsoft would benefit CrowdStrike in being able to utilize their data centers along with Microsoft's brand in the global and US market, which will result in less expenses used towards marketing. CrowdStrike can also utilize Microsoft's current data and distribution centers, which would cut down their SG&A, thus leading them to have a higher revenue growth and lowering the SG&A margin overall, as well as improving CrowdStrike's expenses in various sectors.
With regards to net income, we don't expect CrowdStrike to be profitable until at the earliest 2025. This is due to the heavy SG&A and R&D margins that Sylvia just mentioned, which would drag down CrowdStrike's net income. Thus, through this acquisition, Microsoft would be able to retain the revenues of CrowdStrike with little changes to their current expenses. Assuming that Microsoft does not dramatically increase their shares outstanding, we would also see their earnings per share increase to around $10, which right now Microsoft is at around $5 per share. Net income would also increase about 10% by 2025. For this reason, we believe that Microsoft should acquire CrowdStrike at around 500 million or 800 million to 1.5 billion dollars, with 800 million being a lower ball offer. The integration of these two companies will create a powerhouse in the market, rivaling other cloud giants such as Google and IBM. Thank you.
Team, excellent presentation. I really liked that you did your valuation using comparable analysis, and that you gave a range around valuation, which is always a good idea. As you're looking for companies to use as comparables, what were some of the factors you considered? Did you consider, like, similar technology, similar, customer base or growth profiles? It would be interesting to hear how you went about it.
Yeah, I'll speak briefly about quickly the values real quick. So we particularly looked at their enterprise to EBITDA value, and it was about negative 390 for CrowdStrike versus Carbon Black, which was acquired by VMware earlier for 2.1 billion. They were estimated to have an EV to EBITDA about negative 29, and Palo Alto currently has one as about positive 250. And then one of my other team members can speak about the different comparables and why we chose the companies to compare with.
For the comparables and how we chose our companies, we basically based it off the market of cybersecurity and how we thought Microsoft would benefit from acquiring the company versus other companies. So CrowdStrike is one of the leading companies in AI versus they also acquired a company, CyberX, which deals in IoT or Internet of Things, which we believe is a great combination because it covers the whole market where you have your devices and then you have AI, which improves the intelligence of your devices.
Thanks, guys. Great answers. Alexander, I also liked how you mentioned that although they only had 1% market share, that they're growing at a much higher rate. So that's always an important consideration when you look at a competitive landscape. Good job.
Thank you.
Did I hear you guys say that you're going to keep CrowdStrike separate and not integrate? I thought I heard an integration of the technology, but separate brand. And if that's the case, why is that?
Yeah, actually looking at a past example, Microsoft acquired LinkedIn with using the same strategy. They LinkedIn actually they still retain LinkedIn's management team, and it still acts as kind of a separate company. However, they were still acquired by Microsoft. And I believe Sriram, I think, can speak more about the actual brand and technologies, or Cindy.
Yeah, so we were thinking about integrating the actual product itself, which we called the Falcon Defender, and combining specific aspects of each product and combining it to make a more superior one. And we still thought that keeping separate management teams would help in order to look at company-specific goals as well and see where the company individually has to grow. And together, they can also look at how, as a partnership, they can improve on whatever goals they want to achieve in.
I can add on more about the technology. So we particularly highlighted their cloud-based endpoint and AI features in our Falcon Defender because the cloud endpoint eliminates complexity and they use something called cloud analytics to fight any potential threats in real time. And AI part allows a team to quickly visualize and secure malicious activities that are coming up.
Thank you, guys. Excellent answer.
You guys mentioned some pretty significant cost savings. I think it was like 64% of COGS. Can you speak a little bit more as to what you think drives these cost savings?
Yeah. So to elaborate on this, CrowdStrike actually has data centers in the United States and Germany, which both are about $166 million out of their $250 million total in cost of maintaining these data centers. Microsoft currently has data centers all around the world. And when we looked into these data centers, they were relatively the same. Whatever CrowdStrike was doing, Microsoft has already done. So what we envision is that CrowdStrike would no longer need to utilize all this $166 million in maintaining such huge data centers when they could just utilize Microsoft's current assets, which would in total reduce their cost of goods by about the 64%, which is the 166 million divided by the 250 million.
One thing to consider, guys, is when you're looking at this, I love the LinkedIn because I was also thinking along the same lines. However, the difference is that LinkedIn was a separate platform on its own and had its own brand, and everybody knew it. CrowdStrike does too. But when you're integrating technologies as you are as you're suggesting, sometimes the wiring, as I call it, which is in the background, sort of gets in the way. So you have to think about how you would wire. The other thing that you might think is also that you're talking about a gigantic brand that's going to. LinkedIn was a gigantic brand, but you're picking up a smaller brand, right? And so that. But I thought you guys had a great answer for that too. I think that's a great, reason to keep it separate because you don't want to call it Microsoft Security or something like that. But good points.
I think customer bases are very different. I'm curious. I don't really know much about CrowdStrike's offerings.
Yeah, so I'll speak briefly on that, and one of my other team members who did a little more research can elaborate. So CrowdStrike actually deals a lot more with their subscriptions to companies. They provide security more with companies rather than individuals. So that's why we didn't really see much specific numbers on their websites about how exactly they're charging their current subscription costs. And Microsoft's current Defender just comes along, and they're actually their Azure security defense comes along with a lot of their current products and also subscriptions as well. I think one of my other team members can elaborate more on what their customer base would look like.
Yeah, I wanted to add on that CrowdStrike also does offer an individual subscription base. The lightweight sensor that I mentioned is actually a cloud software that you can download onto your Mac or Windows, and that will be able to detect any cybersecurity risk. And you can pay a subscription fee each month for that as an individual consumer.
Great, thank you. Sounds very complimentary then to Microsoft. Thanks.
Thank you for your time.
All right, great job, Team 2. I think that's going to wrap up questions as well for your presentation. You can go ahead and stop sharing your screen. Wow, so I think we can just go ahead and give all 6 teams a round of applause, whether that's virtually or with emojis. Fantastic job.